Sup, I'm Yuri Gore, and you might know me from my countless how-to videos. Despite how many I've made, I keep getting people asking me to do more of them. So, I figured, rather than just doing another how-to video, which, by the way, I will. In fact, that infamous one is coming very, very soon. So, as a university graduate, I feel I am quite qualified to teach you how to analyze music yourself in this how-to video. But again, as always, for everyone who does actually comment asking for something, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And if you sub and like as well, you're the absolute goat. So I will get to all of those soon, and thanks for the ideas, because ideas are hard. I digress. Analyzing music is actually really, really easy. You just can't analyze music as a whole. It's too big. So we need to break it down into core categories and analyze those individually. These are what's called the concepts of music, and there's 6 of them. Recently I looked up for this video just to make sure I didn't forget anything, and there was like 11 and 9 and all these different numbers. I don't really think it matters what number you use, because these other numbers, the more than 6, just break up the 6 core categories into smaller ones. For example, pitch includes melody and harmony as 2 concepts within pitch. But they will put melody and harmony as 2, and then they'll have 7 instead of 6. And so on, up to whatever number they get to. Now, I'm just going to use the 6 because that's what I was taught, and I think that's the best way to do it anyway, to have core categories rather than subcategories. So the 6 true categories are pitch, duration, dynamics and expressive techniques, tone color, texture, and structure. So now you know the 6 core categories. We're going to go in and we're going to break them down into their most basic components. Now, just to be clear, because this was a misconception that went around uni a lot, was people would think that this way of analyzing music doesn't work because it makes a music good or bad or whatever. That's not the case at all. All this is an analysis of what is happening in the music. You can then take this analysis and use it to explain why music is good or bad. Obviously, that's subjective, but you can use that analysis to explain why it's good, saying they had a great use of this or that, or because they did this, it created interest and such. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to talk about the analysis. So let's go. Starting with pitch. As I said, 2 of the components is melody and harmony. But not everything is melody and harmony. So whilst it's important to break it down into those categories, we need far more generic, general constructions of it. For example, is it high and low? Is the pitch of the sound high and low? High or low, or in the middle, or one of the 2? Is it a definite or indefinite pitch? Definite meaning a clear, controlled note, something like a C or a D, something that an instrument normally makes. Now, this doesn't actually have to be just a C or a D. This could also be, it is a C that is a quarter tone sharp. Or a quarter semitone sharp even. It can be some kind of multi-scale, different cultured note system. That's fine, but it makes a clear, definite note that can be identified. Or is it an indefinite note? Which is, of course, the opposite. Something like a drum or a cymbal hit or something like that. And yes, I know you can tune drums, but a lot of percussion, yeah, technically you could say, we've tuned this to that, but whatever. Most of the case, it's going to be indefinite. There is also unpitched, so indefinite might also, I would say that percussion actually is unpitched rather than indefinite, but there's an argument for that to be made too. Indefinite is great when they are still making pitched notes, but it's not clear what it is, and there's no way to define it. Something like a didgeridoo. Yes, okay, maybe the drone of the didgeridoo is doing a note or something, but you can understand what I mean when I say there's no clear note of what that didgeridoo is doing, but it is doing notes. Next, we have things like contour or direction. Things like, oh, it moves up and then moves down. It starts high and it goes low. This is, again, so many things. And of course, not that I want to talk about the reasons for why a song would be good or bad, but you can use this to explain some things. Like, normally, in the verse, the melody goes up, wait, I might even just do this on Paint. So does the melody start here, move up, and then go back down? Does it start high, go low, come down, and then go up to a mid? Something like that. Now you can actually use this to explain why a piece does something. For example, you could say in the verse, the melody normally starts low, goes high, ends low again. It does this 4 times, but on the last time, it starts low and goes up to high and stays high. And this builds tension that leads into the chorus. Then in the chorus, it starts at that high note and goes down. And that's how we get the release in the chorus. And that's why it creates interest to build to here. So that's kind of how we can use these concepts to explain reasoning. But again, I don't want to use this to explain reasoning, because that's totally, it could be the opposite. It could be normally it goes up and stays there, but this time it went up and stayed down, and that creates a resolve, which, you can use it anyway. I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to kind of show you a couple of reasons why it's important to know these things. So staying within contour, we can even talk about, does it move a lot or is it mostly stable? Is it repetitive, the contour, and so on. Next, we have use of steps, leaps, or repeated notes. Steps just mean, is it a semitone or tone away? And leaps mean, is it more than that? Obviously, repeated note is the same thing. Some other things like ostinato, riff, drone, use of these things still falls under pitch. Tonality, this is different to chord progression. The chord progression is, of course, what the chord progression is. But the tonality is it major? Is it minor? Is it modal? Is it, whatever? And of course, it's not just what is it, full stop, writing it down, locked in. It's, does it change? Do we do stuff with it? Is there multiple? Is it? And so on. Then, this is also one that's kind of forgotten a lot because it's less important, I would say. That is written pitch method. This is also important when analyzing music. If you're not going from the music just strictly audibly, and you are using some kind of written form, then this is something that you can talk about. Is it, standard notation with a clef? What clef is it? Is it alto clef, bass clef, treble clef? Is it graphic notation? Is it figured bass or guitar tablature? Is it a fingering chart or a chord chart? Is it some kind of synth LFO directions chart? Whatever it is, there is a way to explain it, and then from that we can take it and do whatever we want. Those kind of fill up pitch. Maybe there's more that I've missed, but that's kind of the core ones, at least. Next, we move to duration. So duration is obviously time, and that means, of course, tempo. Again, what is the BPM? Or does it change the BPM? Is it a BPM? The meter, and this is obviously the time signature, which we can talk about. You could also say, is it simple or complex time? Simple or compound time? Is there rubato? Is it free time? Is it quite literally timed? 8 seconds of this, and then we go on to the next part, which I know sounds like something that would only be used in like serialism or whatever, but we use it in video games and film all the time. When you don't want to put a strict structure, you might just say tension strings until 8 seconds, and then or 12 seconds or whatever, and we're gonna hit the cue. Notes and rest values. So are they long notes? Are they short notes? Are they a combination? And so on. The rhythms, which is kind of like the feel. So it might be written in 4/4, but the feel might be some kind of other pulse or beat that goes along with it. For example, I learned this one recently that actually had a name, which is the tresillo, which is used in video games all the time, which is that 3-3-2, or the double tresillo, which is 3-3-3, 3-2-2. And obviously, that's the feel of the piece, but that's not the meter. It could be the meter. Maybe they do it in 2 bars of 6/8 and then 1 bar of 4/4 or 2 bars of 2/4 or whatever. But normally, that's going to be a 4/4 measure with that meter going on. In fact, if you don't, it's not actually called a tresillo. It would just be, whatever. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, the feel isn't necessarily the same as the meter. And then, just like everything else, we've got the rhythmic devices. Or the, pitch devices or whatever you want to say. Or the expressive techniques and stuff, So the rhythmic devices are things like ostinato, metric modulation. Is there syncopation involved? Is there free rhythms? Is there cycles? Is there blast beats or backbeats or any other kind of drum beat? All of those things fill into some kind of rhythmic device which would be talked about in duration. Dynamics and expressive techniques comes next. Dynamics is obviously loud and soft, but also, does it crescendo? Does it change? Is it a fast change from louds to softs? Is it a slow change? And then the expressive techniques follows things like articulations, legato, accents, legatos. Is it accented? Is it spiccato? Is there slides being used on synth or something? Expressive techniques also more used for traditional instruments, but can be used to explain other instruments too. Obviously, on traditional instruments, that's things like pizzicato or flutter tongue or tapping on guitar or something. But you could really use this in any way for any instrument or any sound creation. Then you've got a new one, which has come out in the later years, which is like electronic manipulation. Things like guitar pedals, so distortions, delays, wahs, all of those things. Even if we look on the score, they might have a composing note, some kind of expressive direction. Mahler, for example, is known for writing just the most unhinged things on his pieces. It might be something like, I don't know, I want this to sound like a swarm of bees that is like slightly tipsy because they just got divorced or something like that. Obviously he didn't write that one, but he does write lots of things like that. Those all count towards it, and there are things that you can talk about. Tone color, also known as timbre, which is how is the sound produced. So this is more specific than just instrument. What is instrument? It's how's the sound made? Is it a voice? Is it coming from an instrument? Is it a digital or an electronic sound? Is it a natural sound? Then we continue on, get a bit more specific and talk about the production method. You know, if it's an instrument, is it plucked or scraped or strummed or blown or shaken or something, and so on. And then again, we go into the describing sound. This comes more under timbre, I guess, but it's like, how does it sound? Is it nasally or metallic or airy and so on? Moving on now to texture would be, this is where we actually talk about the instruments that are being used, but not just instruments, of course. This also includes sounds. It also means the density, so the amount of instruments. Is it thick or is it thin? Does it change? It's typical stuff that you're gonna, I'm sure, catching on a little bit. This also includes the roles of the layers. Is it a melodic role? Is it a harmonic role? Is it a rhythmic role? And of course, you can break these down even more to say it's the main melody or a counter melody. It is a harmonic role, but it plays the bass as opposed to it plays a note within the chords or whatever. Now, this is the next one, which is the textural type. So monophonic, which means just one voice. That is it, nothing else. Homophonic, which is melody and harmony. Polyphonic, which is multiple voices, but they are all equally as important. So it's like monophonic, but times like 5 or whatever. This is what we see in like fugues and stuff, where there's no one melody that is the most important, and the other things are just accompanying with harmony, which would be homophonic. This is like each line is equally as important as the next, and there is no one most important line. Heterophonic is another one, which is basically monophonic, but people go and they kind of improv a little bit. So one line might be like ba 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 ba, and the other line will be like ba ba da ba ba, kind of thing. Just adds a little tweak onto it, kind of thing. But it's still monophonic, but each player, because they're all playing the exact same thing at the same time, gives their own little color to it. Pretty much all music should fall under that, but if it doesn't, then you can make up your own or say it doesn't fit into these or whatever. Maybe I'm missing one. Finally, we've got structure, which broken down into two things, which is the macro structure and then the micro structure. So the macro structure is kind of how the actual piece is put together. This is things that come from, we've got some proper names from the old, classical period names and stuff. So you've got like strophic, which is just one part that keeps repeating. You've got binary, which is an A and a B section, and that's it, just two. You've got ternary, which is the A, the B that returns to the A. Then you've got rondo, which is, constantly returning to A, but you've got these other sections too. It could be A, B, A, C, A, D, A, E, A, B again, whatever. That still counts as rondo. That would be an asymmetric rondo because it doesn't look the same as front to backwards. But you could do a symmetric rondo, which would be like A, B, A, C, A, B, A, which is very, very common. And then you can have theme and variation upon these parts. For example, A, B, A2, or so on. But it doesn't just have to be this classical, parts. There's a potpourri, which is probably pronounced very differently because it's French. But that's where you kind of have unrelated parts all put together. Kind of like it's an overture from like an opera or something, or a medley or whatever, where you've got like an A, B, C, D, E. Totally unrelated sections, all squished together to make one track. But then we've got the modern structures, like a 12-bar blues or a verse-chorus structure. Granted, verse-chorus could probably be broken up into rondo of some kind, but you can call it whatever you want, doesn't matter. Then undefined, where there is no structure to be spoken about, or at least clear structure. Then through composed, so each part continues on to the next part without any kind of repetition or without any kind of, it's not different parts, they are related, but it continues through. And I'm sure I'm missing a bunch of them, but it's just how you look at the core overarching shape of what's happening structural-wise. Microstructure talks about other parts of the structure that would be reused. So this is where we get like our motifs, or our phrases, or our riffs, or ostinatos, or something. And that's about it. Just to be clear, when we're breaking things down, so I just did this is like a piece, I like to, whenever I hear new music, I like to make my own version of it, just to kind of expand my horizons, I guess. So I analyzed a piece recently, and, I broke it up into parts. So there's an intro, then there was a build, then there was a melody, and then there was a break, and it continued on, but that's not important. So that's how I would start with that macro structure. Then we'd say, yes, there is a guitar riff that is slightly syncopated. There's a guitar riff that was slightly syncopated. So this is not saying, first we need to look at the texture, which instruments are playing, and then you can put them all together. You can say, in this section, one of the instruments that was the main part, it was a main role at least, was a guitar, and it was playing a syncopated part. Then we say the drums are holding the tempo, keeping it clear to that 4/4 part. There is strings and brass doing accenting stabs. Then I've got the build section, where the intro, but it's had theme and variation placed upon it, an expansion. Synth elements are added in for texture. And this, we can do it however we want, but I don't want this to go on for too long, so thanks for watching. I hope this helps you, and have a fantastic day.